Announcement. Hi, this is Francesca popping in to let you know that I have launched a Patreon, the True Love Society, the community that I founded in 2020. It has a brand new home and it is on patreon.com. If you go to patreon.com/Dear Franny, you will be able to join the True Love Society community for free, which means that you can attend our live monthly open houses, Q&As. You can ask me your questions. I'm so excited to answer them. And there are multiple levels of membership. So if you want to upgrade from the free tier, there's lots of benefits. And the top level membership is the mastermind level. And that is the place where I invite you to join me if you were really serious about having accountability, building relationships within the True Love Society community, and also just having a more structured way of reaching your goals in your love life and also in your life generally, because our love lives are not so separate from the rest of parts of our lives. So if you are interested in really manifesting true love inside and out and really truly loving your life, then I invite you to join the True Love Society community on patreon.com. So patreon.com/Dear Franny. Links in the show notes, and I hope to see you there. All right. Now to the episode. Hello, and welcome to Dear Franny. I am your host, Francesca Hogi, and I have the biggest news today, which is that my book, How to Find True Love, is going to be released on April 8th of this year, 2025, and you can pre-order it right now. There's going to be a link in the show notes. You can go to my website, francescahogi.com. You can go to any of my social media. I'm at Dear Franny on Instagram and Threads and LinkedIn and Pinterest and all the places. And I am so excited for you guys to read this book. It is a labor of love. It is the culmination of 12 years as a love professional, plus a lifetime of learning about love and going through my own experiences. The book is not about me, though. The book is about you and how you can make the love that you want an inevitable outcome of your mindset, your heart set, your soul set, and your skill set around love. How to Find True Love. My book is finally, I'm so happy. This is the official announcement day. So please check it out. And I just can't wait for you to read it. I can't wait. And also the cover is really pretty. Just FYI, just if I do say so myself. I mean, I didn't design it, but I love it so much. Okay, so now to today's episode, which is a really special episode. In today's episode, you'll hear my conversation with Elle. Unfortunately, for the last two episodes, I did not record video of the conversation, which was not intentional. That was totally my fault. So you won't get to see Elle, but you will get to hear from her and her challenges around dating and opening herself up to dating and, to feeling good enough and attractive enough, and a lot of the challenges that she has had, which are just so relatable to so many people that I speak to. And a lot of it I can relate to personally at different phases of my life, dating when you're, over 50, all sorts of things that come up in this conversation, I think are really important for everyone to hear, what it's like to even really believe in your ability to have a committed partnership after you've been single for a long time, all of those things and so much more. So please enjoy my conversation with Elle, and I would love to hear your feedback about it. Okay. So how are you?
I'm doing really well. I love this time of year.
But I also know that you have a milestone birthday that's coming up or just happened.
No, it's coming up. I actually just celebrated it.
Okay.
Turned 60 years old.
Amazing.
It is amazing.
Aging like a fine wine, I might add. Not looking a day over 40.
Oh, thank you. I love that.
I also just celebrated a milestone birthday. I turned 50 in November. So
what? Oh my God. Well, fabulous you.
Fabulous us.
Yes.
Okay, so Elle, tell me why. I mean, I read your questionnaire, so I have an idea of what you want to talk about, but please just restate why you want to talk to me today.
Well, I feel that I know I've made a number of mistakes, dating mistakes, and I feel that at this point in my life, I'm really open to a committed relationship, and I just don't know how to have that. I feel like I've been in a number of relationships that haven't worked out for whatever reason, but I'm at a point in my life, I've been very focused on work. I'm a TV writer and fortunately have been able to have a great career, but that's taken a lot of time. It's taken a lot of effort and time away from kind of focusing on personal life. So I've been looking for some work life balance. And as I've approached my 60th birthday, my priorities have kind of shifted and changed. And I think COVID was a big part of that also.
Yeah.
I got to a point during COVID where as a writer, I've been used to being in my house by myself and spending a lot of time alone. I refer to it as going into the cave, and I really enjoy kind of the researching and writing, kind of an introvert to begin with. But during COVID, I kind of had the realization of like, well, if this is it, I'm not going to make it.
Mm,
If I'm going to be this isolated and on my own, I don't know how to move forward. And so that started a real shift for me in terms of how I was thinking about relationships and connection and starting to really crave connection in a way that as an introvert, I felt like I never had before. And so with this milestone birthday approaching and feeling like I want to have more out of life than I have been asking from life before, it felt like a perfect opportunity to kind of rewrite my story
yeah.
and tell a different narrative about myself, because I think I also kind of had an idea about the type of person I am, the type of person I could attract, and what I could expect out of relationships. And I feel like I limited myself in a lot of ways.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. Oh, there's a lot for us to dig
There's
into.
a lot to unpack.
No, but this is great. I mean, and it's all very, it's all very relatable and it's all very common, honestly, right?
Okay.
So I definitely want to talk about these beliefs and this narrative that you had about yourself because that's really huge. But before we get into that, so you had this realization like, okay, I kind of need to spread my wings a bit, right? And not be so isolated.
Yeah.
And so what have you done to be more connected, be more social, be more out there, meet people to date or even just to socialize with?
Well, I did go on the apps. I kind of go on and off of the apps, and I feel like I never really approach the apps with the right intention. I always kind of decide I'm going to do it, and then you sign up and they ask you all of these questions, and I feel like, okay, I got to fill these out now. So I'm never putting as much thought into the answers as I think I probably should be. So it's kind of just like, well, let me just like writing off the cuff, which I don't think necessarily serves me. And then,
You're a writer.
I know, and I should spend more time with it, especially for something about myself.
Yeah.
But then I feel like you get into this rhythm of just swiping, and I don't think I ever had a plan. And I feel like I should approach it with more of a plan of how to proceed. So I got on the apps, but I also tried to really get out more. I tried to make sure that I was doing things that were social. And I guess I did draw on my experience as a writer. And sometimes it feels a little awkward to go out on your own. So I would kind of make it a writing assignment for myself. Like, okay, I'm going to try to write an article about this experience. So for instance, if I went to concerts, I would have like a little notepad with me, like I was a, music journalist writing about it. So I didn't feel like, oh, I feel embarrassed that I'm here by myself, but, kind of hoping that I could meet like-minded people, but also not feel as awkward about going out on my own because I do have a good friend group, but I feel like a lot of times it's just easier to, on the spur of the moment, go and do something. It's kind of harder to rally people and get people to do things. So I end up going out on my own, but then you kind of feel a little awkward. So that was difficult.
Well, I got to say, I think that's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant hack. No, really, because I think whatever you need to do to make yourself feel comfortable, like there's nothing wrong. I think that's actually, I mean, I want to applaud you for having that self awareness to be like, okay, I'm going to treat this as a writing assignment. And that's what's going to get me out. And that's what's going to push me out of my comfort zone. That's fantastic, right? Be proud of yourself.
Okay.
No, seriously, that you came up with a strategy that works for, that works to get you out there in terms of getting yourself out there. So you have, and by the way, I totally can relate to I've been to so many concerts by myself, especially when I'm from New York originally. And when I first moved to LA, I didn't know, I had two friends and I couldn't rely on them to, to be my everything, right?
Right.
And so I actually really undertook it as an experiment. And I gave myself this challenge of like, okay, this is like Operation Go and Meet People. Cause I never had to do that as an adult, outside of a school environment, right? Where everybody's kind of in the same boat. And so I know what it is to like go to a concert by yourself, I used to go to parties by myself,
Yeah.
all sorts of things. So I get it. And I actually kind of, because I'm introverted as well. So I kind of like it, even,
Right.
there's a comfort in being there by yourself a little bit, right?
Being an observer. Yeah. It
Yeah,
really
yeah.
becomes something that you can get a little bit too comfortable with.
Yes, exactly. So this is my next question for you. So, so in these experiments, right, of going out by yourself, how has that been? I mean, so if you were out in public and you saw somebody who looked interesting to you, who looked like, what would you do and what have you done?
Well, that's the problem. Okay, so I could get myself out and get myself feeling comfortable, but then taking that next step of approaching people was really difficult and just felt kind of, just like you don't want to seem like a weirdo talking to just going up to strangers and starting a conversation and then it seems like kind of obvious that you're interested in them. And also, well, particularly at this age, it's a little bit difficult, to meet men of the same age in the same age group. So I felt like a lot of the activities I was doing, were skewing a little bit younger than what I was or what I would be interested in going out with. So I would get myself out, but then that next step of like how to talk to somebody was difficult and almost impossible unless somebody would approach me and talk to me.
And so how much does that happen? How good are you at sort of sending those nonverbal cues that you're open to being approached?
Well, this is what's interesting. It's the double-edged sword of having this kind of comfort of going out with the assignment of writing something because I could too easily hide behind that, so that it's like, oh, don't bother me, I'm writing kind of thing. So, for me, it really was just trying to look up more, look around, make eye contact, that kind of thing. But still, I had the crutch of the notepad and the pen.
You were like really in reporter
yeah.
mode.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and also, if I found something really interesting, it'd be fun to write an essay about it or like repurpose it into something else. So in a weird way, it kind of defeated the whole purpose of going out and meeting people because it became an assignment for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think maybe we could ditch the notepad in the future, right? And you can just take some mental notes and like maybe.
Yes. I do feel though that I have to say like 59 was an interesting year because I feel like as I started to crave more connection, I really felt like I was shifting just within myself and really wanting to make these deeper connections and also making the connection between having better friendships possibly leading to me having better relationships, romantic relationships.
Yes.
And trying to shift my focus to, I kind of get that love that I wanted by giving more of the love that I wanted, if that makes sense.
You're speaking my language. It makes perfect sense.
So just like putting more intentionality and investment in my friendships and realizing, and I'm sure I even got this from one of your podcasts that there's many types of love and that the friendship love is just as important as a romantic relationship. And that because I feel like the idea of loving yourself is so hard to understand. Like I really had a hard time parsing out what that meant and what that looked like. And so through feeling like, okay, if it's this idea of that I have to give what I want to get, then I have to start showing up in all of my relationships in a different way so that I can get back what I'm looking for and not just be like, well, why is anyone calling me? Like the days where I would feel isolated or lonely and think, gosh, nobody's checking in on me. And I was like, well, you can call someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you can call someone, and you can also check in on other people and see how they're doing. So I started to kind of realize that I needed to be more and more active participant in my life in a way.
Yeah. I mean, you're very wise, Elle. I mean, this is all great advice and realizations that you came to on your own and that you've given that yourself, because that is absolutely true. I mean, I was kind of making a mental note that, that was one piece of advice that I had to you, especially because it can feel like a lot of pressure to go out and meet people and, that person's attractive. So then if I go talk to them, but then there's all this pressure because maybe that's the one person that you saw and then maybe they're not even available, all of these things. An easier way of approaching it is really approaching it as connection for connection's sake.
Yeah.
And not being so focused on like, I'm going out to meet a man. It's like, I'm going out to meet people. I'm going out because my intention is to have more relationships, right? And to feel more connected. And you already have that high level intention that you set for yourself, which is to be in a long-term partnership.
Yes.
It's not like you're forgetting about that. It's just sort of understanding the path to that.
Yeah.
It's not just like, okay, got to find him today. It's more, and this is what I want to, I want you to give yourself credit for. And that's a part of self-love, right? Is that self-validation, is giving yourself credit for having this awareness of like, wait, maybe this isn't just about a romantic partner. This is about deepening my friendships, showing up for the relationships in my life in a more meaningful way. So that you're really on the right path with that approach, because it's the analogy that I give, because I'm always encouraging people to really think of love as something that you are choosing to center into your life, right? Like, so if your life is like an old-fashioned wagon wheel, right? Like that center hub in the middle, like that's you, right? And so all of those spokes that are coming out from that center hub, it's work and family and career and, friendship and romantic love and health and every part of your life, right? But you are always at the center of everything. And so you can really choose to really see yourself as love in the center of your life. And you're just, everything else is a natural extension of that. And by sort of looking at your life more holistically, then it's like, because otherwise what we tend to do is we engage in what I call like these love hierarchies, right? Like, right? Like, oh, romantic love is at the top and it's on the pedestal and it's this special kind of love. And, friendship is important, but it's not as important as this. But the more we can say, no, all of the love in my life matters.
Yes.
Right. And I get to choose and I get to experiment with how can I bring love to everything that I do and to all of my relationships. Then there's less pressure to then say, okay, now I'm combining this more holistic approach to love with my intention to also meet a romantic partner. And it doesn't feel now like this is the one area of my life where I'm thinking about love or investing in love. It's actually, it's like, well, no, like, yeah, I'm bringing love to that, just like I'm bringing love to myself, just like I'm bringing love to my friendships. Right.
Right.
So I think, does that resonate?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, because it's good practice, right? You have to practice what you preach, and I feel like that's good practice for ultimately being ready to be in a romantic relationship, knowing how to show up and getting vulnerable, which is difficult. I feel like sometimes it's so much easier for me to give and to help than it is for me to ask for help, or to allow people to give me things, or to even have like an expectation that people will want to, or that I can ask for those things. And I think that's when, even if I kind of know the theory and the idea behind it all, that's when putting it into practice becomes really, really hard,
Yeah.
because that's a level of vulnerability that I think is still hard for me. And I don't know if that's rooted in still not feeling worthy, or still feeling like, nobody's going to give this to me, so I can't really ask for it. That's a big thing for me, because I feel like I've gotten so good at being alone and so good at being self-sufficient, and I can be strong. And I think people view me that way, but they also don't see that there's a very sensitive and scared person underneath it all who really wants some support.
Yeah. So, going back to this topic of self-love, the first element of self-love the way that I see it is really just self-compassion and kindness, right?
Mm.
Like, because having a challenge with being vulnerable, with receiving help, with receiving love, right, from other people, that's an evergreen challenge. Like,
Why is that? Why are we all experiencing that?
I mean, I have theories. I really think I think we have a self-worth crisis, right, in our culture, because we have a very, very dysfunctional approach to love, right? Because we do engage in these love hierarchies, and we're very focused on love as an emotion versus love as a verb, right?
Mm.
So we're kind of all like waiting to wake up one day and like feel worthy and feel in love with ourselves versus understanding, well, how am I speaking to myself, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, that's a big
That's a big
one.
one, right?
Yeah.
Like, how much am I judging myself or shaming myself for things that feel hard for me? Or how
Yeah.
much am I, feeling unworthy and letting that narrative go unchecked within me, right? And so it's
Yes.
like when we start to, I look at it as like, well, what are the things that are actually preventing us from feeling love towards ourselves? Right?
Mm.
It's an inside job, right?
Right. Yeah.
So just fundamentally changing that relationship with yourself and how you speak to yourself, that is huge. And, if it was easy, everybody would do it, and hardly anybody does, right?
Yeah.
So we live in this world, and, I think we get so many messages about what makes us good enough, right?
Hmm.
And it starts at a very young age, and it starts by people who might be well intentioned and by a lot of people who aren't well intentioned, but even just, oh, if I get good grades, then I'm good enough, right?
Yeah.
If I'm nice and sweet and everybody likes me, then I'm good enough, right?
Yeah.
If I'm pretty enough, then I'm good enough, right? If I'm able to buy these things that are being marketed to me, then I'm good enough. And so it's just like it can become this never-ending game of whack-a-mole, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think that's why we have such a hard time with it, because we're all kind of unconsciously in this program of playing this game and not realizing, like, oh, wait a second. Well, where do I actually believe that self-worth even comes from?
Yeah, the good girl thing really resonates with me, because I feel like that's a big part of kind of how I was raised and growing up, and the expectations of me that I carry into adulthood. Like I feel like I really rise to the occasion and shine when someone's challenging me to be better, or, I have a task, or even in relationships, trying not to rock the boat, right? Like not being too much, not being a problem when, being a problem basically just means expressing your needs.
Right.
And it's so hard to ask that. I wonder about that even now, like just trying to date in my 60s, and whatever whatever issues and baggage I have, I feel like, gosh, is there going to be somebody who's even willing to like deal with what I have?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but it's really hard to feel like, it's like I feel like there's so many there are a lot of things that at this point in my life I can't change. Maybe I'm unwilling to change them and compromise, but will I ever find somebody who's going to accept me just for who I am, or am I always going to have to kind of hold back and not rock the boat, and be content with that? Because I feel like that's a big part of the relationships that I've been in, where I'm so willing to kind of see who the other person is and explore what they need, and really, not question anything, under the idea, the guise really of like, okay, let's let you reveal yourself. Let me see who you are. Let me not challenge that. But by not challenging that, I'm not getting any of my needs met,
Yes.
And so it's like, okay, how do you ask for that stuff that you want? And I guess that comes back to really like a lack of self-worth, because it's like I feel like maybe I don't deserve love enough to show who I really am. And if I show who I really am, then maybe somebody won't want to love me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is so resonant of like, a way that I felt about myself for many years
Mm.
and, things that I hear from people every day. So just first of all, no, you're not alone, right? And I so appreciate your vulnerability and articulating this because it's definitely helping other people, I promise you. But here's the thing about self-worth is that we can choose to take high self-worth action even if we don't feel 100% worthy,
Mm.
right? So one of the great things that I'm hearing is that you know what it is to hold back in a relationship. You know what it is to not ask for your needs. You know to be met. You know what it or not even expect, much less ask, right?
Yeah.
You know what it is to dim yourself and make yourself small so that somebody else can be the focus, right? And you can try to get that acceptance from them. So you've already tried that strategy, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You've already reached the conclusion, wait, this is actually not working, right? And
Right.
so now going back to that self-compassion and that self-kindness, it's like, okay, well now am I willing to no, I don't have to be perfect because perfection is not a thing. Okay, right?
Right.
So the quest for perfection is a futile quest that brings us nothing but unhappiness, right?
Yeah.
And so once you kind of accept that, okay, I don't have to be perfect. So let me just take that burden off of myself, right? And let me set an intention to be more courageous in actually showing up differently, right?
Hmm.
And you can start to ask yourself the question, well, if I did truly believe I was worthy of receiving the love that I actually want, what might I do next? What might I do differently? Right.
Yeah.
And so I also mentioned that self validation. And I think you've already started to do that because, even though, and we'll go back to the online in a moment, but like, but even, like you're like, okay, well, I would put myself out there. Right. And so there's just been this like push pull. So you haven't fully committed and you haven't had the intention behind it that's really going to set you up for success in it. However, you still intuitively have started to understand like, oh, I actually would start taking different actions. I would start going out by myself. I would start picking up the phone and calling my friends and checking on them, right? And so
Yeah.
those are all high self-worth actions.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so I want you to then give yourself credit. Be like, oh, wait, hold on. I'm actually doing more for myself and to honor myself than maybe I've been giving myself credit for, right?
Okay.
Okay. So the more you're able to give yourself that validation and that credit, the more your confidence builds. And then the
Mm.
more the feeling starts to catch up of like, yeah, you know what? I am worthy of actually putting myself out there, even though it's uncomfortable. And I am worthy of having friendships that are more connected where I'm able to receive more from other people and I can actually ask
Mm.
for my needs to get met. So this is like an ongoing conversation with yourself
Mm.
where
Mhm.
you starting to reframe things so that you see like I'm actually doing more than I thought I was doing, right? And
Yeah.
I'm actually further along on this self-love journey than I've actually been giving myself credit for
Mhm.
because you're doing hard things, but you're skipping over the part where you give yourself credit for doing those hard things,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. I feel like there are two different people within me. Okay. So even as you're saying that, I feel like somehow I don't feel like I'm necessarily a person who sabotages relationships, but I feel like sometimes I'm too smart for my own good. So, like reaching out to a friend in my mind could also be a way of like passive aggressively being like, okay, I'm reaching out, so I want them to know to reach out to me instead of just being like, I need help, instead of just calling someone and being like, I really just need to talk about what's going on. I feel like, oh, I'm going to reach out and then maybe they'll get the lesson. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a baby step, right? And so now you've realized you're like, okay, maybe now it's time for me to actually push myself,
mm,
right? So going back to that question, if I truly believed that I was worthy of being supported by my friends and getting that help when I need it, what might I do differently?
Mm.
And so they're like, okay, well, I wouldn't just call them and hope that meant that they would kind of, figure it out. I would actually call and say, when they say, oh, how are you doing? I'd be like, I actually could use some support right now.
Yeah.
Having a hard time right now.
Yes.
And that's going to feel incredibly uncomfortable.
I was just going to say, yeah, I don't want to do that.
See, okay, it's good that you recognize it, right? Because you can, again, going back to this, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it bears repeating, like going back to this kindness of like, wow, this feels really hard.
Mm.
It feels really hard for me to actually ask for help when this is something I have never done before.
Right.
Right. So first of all, why wouldn't it feel hard if you've never done it before? Right.
Yes.
So part of it is just like accepting the challenge of the situation. You've done lots of hard things in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually been really hard for you to be so hyper independent that you haven't gotten the help and the support that you need, right?
Yeah.
So the point is not that you can't do hard things. The point is that this is something that's hard, that's new, that has a story associated with it, right?
Yeah.
And so the self-compassion and that decision to say, all right, I'm going to start to take this high self-worth action, even though it feels really scary, even though I don't feel 100% worthy of it or, confident that I can do it, I'm still going to push myself to try, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to take the steps that I can. That's so powerful for you to take that action because you're starting to show yourself, oh, I actually can do something that's hard and that's scary. And then I can notice like, okay, actually I did it. Like I made it. Like I'm still here.
Yeah.
And you can let the confidence of doing that hard, scary thing really use that to fuel you in pushing yourself to do more and to do more and to do more, because otherwise you're just going to keep doing something that's really hard. It's just hard and familiar. Right?
Right. Yes.
So stepping into the unfamiliar is going to feel scary, but you are, like I said, how many hard things have you done? You can do this.
Yeah.
You can create a new normal for yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, if you say so.
I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, but
don't apologize. It's good. Let it come up. You have to process these emotions, right? You need to let it come up and come out because that's how we that's how we get through it. Right. So we know what it is to keep it bottled inside.
Yeah.
That help?
No. But I guess what I'm afraid of is like, what if I'm a totally different person? Like, what if there's a part of me that as I approach this 60th birthday feels like I can change my story. And there's a part of me, a different part of me, where I could be like a whole different person than what I am. I mean, not saying better or worse, just different, that I could move through life differently. I guess that feels scary.
What I would encourage you to think about is, well, who am I really?
Yeah.
Right? Before I got all of these messages and I started telling myself these stories about what I deserve and what I get to have and what it means to ask for help and to receive love from other people, who was that person? Right? And really think of it, because this is not you becoming somebody that you're not. And you're right to, look, you are going to be a different person. And ideally we're growing and we're evolving and we are shifting, but ultimately we're really just coming back to ourselves.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. We're shedding the layers of the stories and the traumas and the habits that no longer serve us. Right. And so is that scary? Absolutely. It's absolutely scary. If that wasn't scary, everybody would be out here transforming themselves all the time. And you might have noticed how much, we have that tendency to cling to those old ways of being, even when we know it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So to even contemplate a new way of being yourself in the world, which is really just a return to who you are, that's a big deal. So again, I want you to give yourself credit for the fact that you're even starting to envision that, right? And you're starting to see this new version of yourself that's emerging. And look, excitement and nervousness and fear are two sides of the same coin,
Yeah.
right? And so something that I would really encourage you to do is to think about, well, how can I actually get excited about moving into this new chapter of my life, this new decade of my life with more open-heartedness from this place where I'm more rooted in self-worth and self-love, where I'm actually able to be more
Yeah.
courageous and actually because it's uncomfortable to let go of the ways that we've been doing things for a long time. And this isn't about me, but trust me, it could be.
Yeah.
But also, we can look forward and say, oh, but then I actually get to have the relationship that I want, right? Then I actually get to have the intimacy that I want. I get to feel the connection to other people that I actually truly want to feel
Yeah.
and experience, right? I don't have to put all of this energy into blocking that
Mm.
and suppressing that, right?
Yeah.
So, how free might you actually feel to honor your true self and your true needs versus all of the convincing that we need to do to keep ourselves in a stuck place?
The problem is, at this stage, I feel like I'm so good at convincing myself. It's such a habit now that the other being, more true to myself feels hard, almost impossible. Like, how would I do that? And how would other people react? Like, the fear of kind of pushing away people who you want in your life or who have been in your life if you're asking for quote unquote too much.
Mm,
And yeah,
yeah.
it just feels like I've been this for so long. How do I change that without people being like, who are you? Or,
Yeah. Well, number one, you're a writer, so you have an advantage here because you understand what it is to change the narrative
Yeah.
and to change the story. Because obviously, like I don't know you, I don't know your existing relationships, but is it possible and does it happen sometimes that as you are growing and you are expanding, that everybody who was in your life before can't come along?
Yeah.
That happens, right? And so that is hard, right? To say goodbye. But once you're honoring yourself and you're moving more into this place of excitement and vision and possibility, then you can also see, but then who do I actually make space to bring into my life that's actually aligned with where I'm going
Yeah.
versus the people who are, because I mean, again, I'm not trying to disparage your friends. I don't know them.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Right. But like as an example, say you realize you're like, well, but I have all of these relationships where I'm so used to doing for everyone else. And if I now start asking people to do for me, they might be like, well, that's not what I signed up for. Right. Let's just say that were to happen. I'm not saying it will, but let's just say that were to happen. If you truly believe that you were deserving of having the love that you want, how would you react to that?
I would move on. I mean, I think I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I guess I would try to, how would I react to that? Or how would I
Well,
want
what's
to
what's the
react to that?
story? What's the narrative that you would tell yourself in that situation?
I mean, I feel like the narrative that I would tell myself would be that need to have more compassion for my friends, or that I was asking for too much. But I know that that's not what I should be telling myself.
That's the old narrative, right?
Right.
So but moving into a place where you like, so we're imagining the
Yeah.
possibility, right? Where you actually fully feeling worthy of having the love that you want and having the reciprocity and relationships that you deserve,
Hmm.
right? So if it's too much to think of yourself, what would a person, let's a hypothetical person,
Yes, a hypothetical person. Uh-huh.
what would a hypothetical person, what narrative might they tell themselves in that same situation?
That perhaps this friendship had run its course. The friend wasn't able to, whatever's going on in their life, they're just not able to show up for me. So,
Yeah, right?
yeah.
I think that's absolutely something that that person might say, right? And they might say, "Well, I'm not saying I'm more deserving
Yeah.
of support or love than anyone else. But if this person thinks I'm less deserving, right? If they think that
Yes.
having their needs met is more important than having my needs met, then
Yeah.
is that an asymmetry that I actually want to encourage, right?
Right.
Is that in
Yeah.
my highest good?
Mhm.
And is it even in their highest good, honestly,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Because I happen to believe that everything that is in your highest good is in everyone else's as well, even if they don't know it,
Mm. Mhm.
right? So it's like when you leave a relationship where you're the person who has the bravery, the courage, the awareness to realize like, oh, this is not a healthy dynamic.
Yeah.
The other person might be really pissed off because they're like, we are in this unhealthy shit together. Let's stay here forever.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
But you get to say, well, actually, I don't want to stay there forever, and you shouldn't either.
Right, and taking the judgment of the other person out of it because ultimately we're all just beings trying to get through this.
Right? Doing the
Yeah.
best that we can with what
Yeah.
we have, right?
Mhm.
And where we are. And so I would just, this is what I mean about like changing that narrative,
Yeah.
right? Like, because all of the justifications, all of the stories that you have to
Yeah.
do everything the way that you've always done it.
Yeah.
You got that on lock,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's time to tell a new story.
Mhm.
Right. And so I would encourage you, and I know you probably heard me say this to other people because you listen to the podcast, but like
Yeah.
this exercise of like writing down
Mm.
these beliefs, these stories, these narratives that you have about love and who gets to have it and what you deserve and who's going to give it
Yeah.
to you and all of this without judgment, right? So really starting from a place of self-compassionate curiosity,
Mhm.
getting to know myself here, right? Like I'm trying to understand more
Right.
about what's really going on within me that is actually enabling me to keep these patterns and these habits that I see no longer serve me,
Right.
right? You write all that down and be really honest with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And not shaming yourself or judging yourself because that is not helpful.
Yes.
If it worked, then I would be like on the shame train, okay? But it just doesn't work. So
Right.
at some point we have to say like, all right, I've tried it this way for a really long time. Let me try it a new way. Let me see what other experience I can actually have,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Of relationships and starting with my relationship with myself.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So once you do that, right? And again, you're a writer.
Yeah.
So you have a leg up here, right? Because then you can start to look at those beliefs and look at those stories. And you can, first of all, say, number one, is this true? And probably some of them you're probably going to be like, I don't even know if this is actually true, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And others you might say, no, I really feel this is true. This has been my experience. It doesn't matter whether you say yes or no. It's just as long as it's honest for you, right? But then the next question is, well, do I want this to be true?
That's good. Yeah.
Okay. Because if you want it to be true, then great, done. You keep it moving, right?
Right.
But for anything that you're like, actually, I don't want this to be true, then you can ask yourself the next question, which is, am I willing to consider the possibility that it's not true or that it won't always be true?
Mhm.
Right. And if you are willing to consider the possibility, it doesn't matter. It can be, you're like, okay, maybe there's an infinitesimal possibility. That's fine. It doesn't have to be huge, right? We're not trying to do a 180 switch like immediately overnight. I'm not into that. Like that doesn't help because our brains just like, we're like, well, that's just bullshit. Well, I don't feel that,
Yes. Yeah.
right? But if you're willing to consider the possibility, no matter how remote, right?
Mhm. Yes.
That is actually an amazing first step because into that crack of possibility, you can like change your life.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you can ask yourself if you're willing to say, okay, I'm willing to consider that this is possible. Then you can start to ask, well, what would I rather be true instead? Right. Because maybe I've been telling myself this story that if I ask for more from the people in my life, they're going to be like, what's wrong with you? Who are you? I don't want to get out of here. Right.
Right.
And maybe that's true for some of the people in your life. And maybe it's true that they'd actually be like, oh, Elle, I didn't know you needed me.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's also possible.
Right.
Right. And it's also possible that even if everyone in your life doesn't have that reaction, that there's other people who now you're making space for in your life who will.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The part about, who do you want to be? That's hard also. How do you want to show up? What do you want the story to be?
Yeah. What would you rather be true?
What would you rather be true? Mm-hmm.
What would you rather be true? Because, I mean, you might have heard me give this example before, but I kind of stumbled upon this very accidentally in one of these moments of grace because I had a belief about myself since I was 9 years old because of some boy that boys didn't like me.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was a full grown adult lawyer, right?
Yeah.
And so one day I call it a moment of grace because this narrative had been going through my head for so long that it wasn't a story. It was just true.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
But one day I was able to like hear it and I was like, I've been thinking that for a really long time. What if it's not even true? I mean, and mind you, I was like, I have a mountain. I could tell you all the boys who don't like me, right? Who and haven't liked me for the last 20 years. I got plenty of evidence, right?
Yeah.
Because we can always find evidence to support whatever it is that we believe. That's a given, right? So we can't go by the evidence. We have to go by, but this narrative, like, okay, certainly not every boy on earth likes me, but I don't like every boy on earth either. So why would I? Who's liked by everybody?
Right.
Literally no one.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe that's not actually true. Maybe what I need to focus on is how do I connect with the boys that do like me? How do I stop running away from the boys that do like me and making them wrong?
Right. Well, see that's the interesting part about it, like running away from the people who like you, like not valuing the people who like you. You hear a lot about, looking for chemistry and the spark and all of that. And so feeling like, okay, if the people who like you but you just aren't drawn to them, like, what is that about?
Let me tell you what it's about, Elle. Let me tell you what that's about.
Tell me. Yes, please.
So chemistry is a force that is kind of neutral, but our personal experience of it is imprinted by our beliefs.
Okay.
Right. And so there is a reason why, for instance, we all have relationship patterns, right? Because it's not like you meet somebody and you're like, this person's going to be emotionally withholding and you're not consciously saying that, right? But yet you find yourself, you're like, how am I in this situation again? Right. Mm-hmm. And the reason that you're in that situation again is because that is the beliefs that you have about yourself are a match for this person. Right. And so our chemistry and who we're attracted to changes as we change.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so this is why that self-belief and those stories and those narratives that you tell yourself, because if you tell yourself, I am not deserving of people who show up for me and do for me as much as I'm willing to do for them, then when somebody shows up and they want to give you more than you comfortable with, it would be psychologically irrational.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
For you to let that person in. And so this is our subconscious genius. It is amazing, right?
Oh God. Yeah.
It is amazing. And so it's not bad because it's just when we see, oh, my chemistry radar is actually repeatedly leading me to something that I do not want.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. That's just an opportunity to be like, okay, so I'm the radio, right? Like I got to change the channel that I'm on.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I always tell people, it's like, no matter how frustrating or demoralized you might feel by whatever your particular relationship pattern is, at least be aware of like, well, I have a pattern. I'm the common denominator in this pattern. Right. I can see that other people have different patterns.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so there's got to be something more going on here, right? What if this is not just my destiny, right? But what if by changing the relationship that I have with myself, because I can tell you now, to me, the most attractive thing about a man is being into me. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And so a lot of the challenges that I had before of like being like pining after people who weren't a bit like,
Yes.
I can intellectually remember when that was
Oh,
where I was,
yeah.
but it's so far from where I am in my heart now that it's like I would just never, like, the moment I felt like somebody wasn't into me, I'd be like, oh well, it's over. It's a wrap.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but that
Mhm.
was an inside out. So please.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I kind of flashed back like my last two relationships. I kind of had this phrase that I now realize is really problematic. But I
Mm,
would say to myself, my feelings for them are not contingent on their feelings for me. And it was
mm,
almost like giving myself permission to fall for someone who I knew was not interested in me, who I knew would be withholding, who I knew would never love me. But it was like, you know what? I'm going to just freely give my love to this person, regardless of how they decide to feel about me back. And I remember distinctly, like, kind of setting up, the moment of using that phrase and realizing now that it was probably in a moment where I really, knew in my gut that, like, this isn't going to work and this is bad and this is a dumb idea. However, I don't want to be alone and I want to be in a relationship. So my feelings for them are not going to be contingent on their feelings for me. And I'm just going to go for it. And then, heartbreak ensues, but you're mired in these situationships for years that it feels so painful to get out of. And it's so hard to extricate yourself from it because you've got all of these, you're mourning the loss of something that really was never going to be and was never that great to begin with. The whole relationship is me justifying or chasing them and never getting what I wanted and never honestly revealing who I really am because I'm so concerned with what they would want.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
What you were saying right now is so powerful. It's so powerful because you literally had to hypnotize yourself with a mantra,
Yes. Yeah.
right? In order
Yes.
to keep this pattern going.
Yeah.
So
This is so true.
just like I had to hypnotize myself with boys don't like me, boys don't like me. I had to say that to myself over and over again for literal
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah.
Because without that, if I was telling myself a different story, voila, I have a different
Yeah.
love life, right? And so this is
Yes.
why
Yeah.
going back to the narratives and the stories that we are telling ourselves and starting to
Mm.
challenge those narratives, right? Once you see what you just said is so major. I hope you recognize that.
It's very interesting. I mean, that's the phrase I've said. I remember the last two relationships that I was in. That was how I, as you said,
Yeah.
hypnotized myself into continuing with something that my gut knew was just wrong and was never going to work. And why was I wasting so much time on it? But I want to be in a relationship. I want to, I want to have somebody, even if it's the worst scenario, even if it's not really having somebody because they're just not, they can't meet any of my needs because they don't even know what my needs are because I'm not
Yeah.
telling them.
Yeah. And ultimately, you don't
Mm.
even really like them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is when you realize you're like, wait, I've been giving all of this energy and all this power. And then so this is what I mean. When I say love is an inside job, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Right. And so
Yeah.
so again, the good news here, I mean, there's so much good news here, but one piece of good news here is that you've already been through this. You know what that is.
Mhm.
So now you get to create a vision. Well, what do I actually want? What do I actually want in a relationship? Right.
Right.
What do I actually want to experience with my partner?
Mhm.
Right? How do I actually want to feel about them and feel about myself
Yes. Yeah.
when I'm in a relationship with them?
Yeah.
Right? And so if you can and you can start to answer those questions and anchor yourself in that,
Mhm.
then the next time you meet a guy who you know in 5 seconds
Yeah.
is non-committal,
Right.
narcissistic, withholding, all the things,
Yes.
you're like, I know exactly what this is,
Yeah.
right? Guess what? I can choose differently. I don't have to do this again.
Right.
right? I've been here, I've done that. I know how this goes. I'm choosing differently now. And that's what I mean by taking high self-worth action, even though part of you is going to
Mm.
be like, oh, but,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
But if
knowing
you
how to
like,
value myself and protect myself. And even if
yes,
it's not what I am, quote unquote, feeling, to kind of step outside and really, not hypnotize myself with the wrong thing, but kind of, see what would best serve me.
yeah, yes. And then it becomes a virtuous loop because
Mm.
the more you're able to say no to what is not right for you, the more you're expanding your comfort with what is.
Mm.
Right?
Mhm.
And so I'm not saying the first because and first of all, just because somebody is interested in you doesn't mean you have to date them, right? Like
That's
you
true.
don't, you still get to have discernment, right?
Yes.
But you can start to tell like, okay, well, maybe I'm actually the thing that's actually kind of the reason I have hesitation right now is because he seems to really just see me for who I am,
Mm.
and that's kind of freaking me out, right? Or he just seems to actually just want to do things for me without expecting anything in return.
Right.
And you can start to understand, like, oh, wait, maybe I should just take a deep breath and be kind to myself and actually give myself a chance to have this different experience.
Yeah.
And I know I said I wanted to go back to online dating, but I think this is a good experiment for you, right? To have an intention. So if you are going to get back on the apps,
Yes.
right? To do this with the intention of my assignment right now is to expand my capacity to receive.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. So I'm not on the apps to meet my husband tomorrow, right?
Yes.
I'm on the apps in an experiment and a project, and you can write about it if you want. Great. Great. Do it if you need to, right? Of expanding my capacity to receive.
Okay.
Okay. And then you can start to have that conversation with yourself of like, okay, well, what does that look like? Right? What are the ways in which I'm not showing up as my authentic self?
Mhm.
Right? I know it's scary, but am I willing to do that? Right?
Yeah.
What are the ways in which I can see by someone's, even by their profile and how they're communicating, I can see this person is not serious, right? They're
Right.
not,
Yes.
I can just say like, oh, I don't have to judge. I don't have to judge them, but I also can just not communicate with them, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like I can just choose, oh, I'm actually not going to give my energy to this person because I can see this person is incapable of meeting my needs. I'm here to do an experiment and expanding my capacity to receive. And that's more of the same.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage you to like give yourself 30 days, right?
Okay.
Just say like, okay, this is a 30-day experiment, right? And so for 30 days, I am only going to give my time and my energy to men who actually are showing up and they in a way that is different for me,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
They have intention. I'm not having to chase them down. They're
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? And let yourself experience that,
Mhm.
and give yourself credit for allowing yourself to experience that. And then in another 30 days, you can reevaluate and you'd be like, okay, how did that go?
Right.
Right.
Yes.
What's my next assignment? Right. And like, maybe you're like, okay, look, I was open and I gave a chance to this or that. And maybe now I see, well, maybe I don't need to be that open-minded.
Right.
Right. Maybe I don't need to, say yes to someone who's like love bombing me and saying that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. Maybe I'm like, okay, too much. And that's its own challenging dynamic
Yeah.
that I'm not interested in. Right. So now I'm actually looking for someone who's more grounded, who's more balanced, who's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to take a super long time, but
Mm.
I do think that you need to take some time to be very intentional in how you are dating. And I'm going to actually send you my course because I have a course, How to Date with Intention.
Okay.
I'm going to send this to
That's
you
awesome.
because I think it'll be really helpful for you. It's 30 days. It's all delivered via text.
Okay. Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
these little short lessons every
Okay.
day for 30 days. And it's like a pre-dating thing because it's really getting you to a place where you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing now. Like I'm going into this, like I am literally going into this with intention. And I don't want you to only focus on online dating. I never want anybody to only focus on online.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a good experiment because you get the volume, opportunity, right?
Yeah. And to be discerning and to try and really see what you like. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
I think you doing that and you doing it again with this real spirit of like self compassion and curiosity
Mhm.
and just being really gentle with yourself and giving yourself credit for all of the discomfort that you are
Yeah.
facing and you are acting in spite of, right? Like that is going to really help you to moving forward, because it's going to give you the confidence to know, oh, actually, I can do this.
Mm.
I actually can do this. I actually can expand my capacity to receive. I actually can break this pattern. And I promise you, Elle, there's going to come a day
Mm.
where you meet some guy and he's going to be sexy and he's going to be like all the things that you used to be like, but you're going to note it. You're going to see that he's like not available and you're going to be like, oh, I'm not even interested in this anymore.
Right. Yeah.
That day will come.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to experience it.
Me too.
Because that's when you'll know. You'll be like, oh, wow, I really am over that. I
Yeah.
really am over that. I really am ready for something new.
Yeah.
And then you can get really excited that your next relationship is going to be the best relationship you've ever had.
Okay. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, this all sounds really exciting, and I also feel like there's a part of me that's like, kind of, calm down. This will take time and patience, and to not just be focused on, okay, I want to find the person now, and
Yeah.
just know that I like what you're saying, this is how you love yourself also. It's like part of this is really being good to myself and really learning to love myself more.
Yeah.
Because, and
Yeah.
that it's not selfish.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's actually just, I believe that if everyone in the world loved themselves and valued themselves and believed that they were worthy of having healthy reciprocal relationships, the world would be a better place, would it not?
Right. Yeah. We'd all be on the same page.
The world would be a better place. Like, I mean, look
Yeah.
at the world and how dysfunctional it is, right? And so you are doing your part by improving your own life and your own relationship with yourself. You are doing your part to like elevate our whole love consciousness, because it needs it. The elevation is needed, right?
Yeah.
So you can do this.
Okay.
I promise you. And I appreciate you so much for doing this session and being so vulnerable. And I know it's a lot to take in.
Yeah, but I appreciate it. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity for me to be able to, even in this space, try to express what I need.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So give yourself a lot of credit.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Because
will.
this is one of those hard, scary things that you've done. So now don't rob yourself of the benefit of added confidence by not giving yourself credit.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So you've done a hard, scary thing. Please give yourself so much credit for it. And know that it's the more you go doing these scary things, they're going to get less and less and less and less and less scary. And it doesn't have to take a super long time, but it's also not about just getting into a relationship, because that's not.
Yes, that hasn't worked.
Being in a relationship is not the prize, right? You are the prize, right?
Yeah.
So co-creating a relationship that's really reciprocal and feels good. That's the goal. And I don't think that you're probably closer to this than you think you are, because you're already starting to get all of these insights and you're already like, wait a second, I want more. I want more connection. I'm actually, so you're already, you just need a little bit of evidence that more is possible for you. And you need to really start working on having a kinder conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
But it's not about, and now, okay, and in 3 years, no, it doesn't have to, no, it's not that. It's like, you could meet someone amazing tomorrow.
Yeah.
And maybe, you're ready for that, because you're like, okay, well, at least now I know how to talk to myself, right? So I can.
But also, I think I also need to, and maybe you'll disabuse me of this notion, but I feel like I also need to accept that I may not meet somebody, but that in this process, if I get a sense of peace and acceptance for myself.
Let me ask you a question, Elle.
Yes.
Do you think that If you are really intentional about being more vulnerable, about asking for what you need by investing in the people who are demonstrating to you in their actions that they're able to provide that, do you think that there's any chance that you wouldn't meet someone?
I mean, honestly, yeah, I feel like I feel like it hasn't happened so far. And I know, as we've discussed, I've been doing things in a way that I want to change, but I guess that's part of something that I have to still work on because I feel like it hasn't happened so far. So I don't have the belief
Yeah.
necessarily that it can happen.
So you don't have to believe 100%,
Okay.
but you can also, I mean, I don't want you to discount how you were intentionally not, when I say intentionally, I don't mean like you were like, I'm going to cause myself pain, but you were,
Right.
you were actively co-creating relationships that were unsustainable.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So by stopping doing that and starting doing something else, I promise you, there's more than one person out there for you, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
so your intention to shift this pattern and this narrative and to start to show up differently, I promise you it will yield you results.
Okay.
I promise. It's just like if I said, if you were determined to make a new friend, like, would you make a new friend?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's honestly not that different. It's
Yes.
only different because we have such a different narrative and it's triggering for us in different ways. But that's why, having this kind of relationship with yourself where you can explore those narratives that hold you back,
Yeah.
right? It hasn't happened up until now because you haven't been ready for it.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you were a match with those people
Right.
who also weren't ready for it.
Yes.
And so you're changing that now. And so you're going to be a match with a new kind of person.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I can see that.
It's going to be good.
Thank you, Francesca.
Thank you so much, Elle. I so appreciate you. I truly do. And I wish you so much luck, but more than luck, you just need love, and that is within you. And so the more that you cultivate that, the easier everything is going to get on the outside.
Thank you.
Okay, so there you have it, my conversation with Elle. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you so much for listening and taking the time wherever you are in the world to spend some of it here with us today. If you are enjoying this podcast, please do me a favor and share it with a friend, share it on social media. Please make sure that you are following the podcast. If you have not yet left a review, we love your 5-star ratings and reviews. So grateful for them. So please take a few moments. It does help the show a lot, and it means so much to me personally. And I also want to again encourage you to check out my book, How to Find True Love. You can pre-order it now. You will get it on April 8th. I'm so excited about it. And my 2024 was pretty much dedicated to writing this book, and really writing the book changed my life in a lot of ways. And I have poured my heart and my soul into it. And I hope that it changes your life in a very positive way, because that is certainly my intention. All right. Thanks so much for listening. Have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. Till next time. Bye.